You're welcome back. This is The Pulse. My name is Gifty Andopia, and I've been joined in the studio by head of our political desk, Evans Mensah. He gets very, very, very excited when he hears the word politics. And so he's the right man in the studio to have a discussion on the content of the president's speech. Very soon I'll have the President Farmers join me in the studio as well to talk about that bit of the president's message. But let's start with the forceful takeovers. Today we saw the president speak for the second time on that particular matter. And although Johnson Asiedu-Nketia thinks that he should have done that earlier, some people will say that it's better late than never. Let's go over to Parliament and hear the president say that again. When I come back, I'll engage Evans Mensah on it.
Certain incidents occurred during the transition period that are matters of concern to me and should be to every Ghanaian, as they marred an otherwise dignified and successful transition. Wrongdoing has no political color, and I do not subscribe to the lawlessness of political party supporters simply because their party has been elected into office. Mr. Speaker, when those incidents began, I instructed the then Inspector General of Police, John Kudalo, to apply the law, irrespective of political affiliation, to all lawbreakers. This instruction was also carried on to his successor, David Asante Apietu. Both of them acted upon it, which helped to bring the situation under control. It appears these events were predicated on some concept of equalization, as they happened in 2009 and were repeated again in 2017. I condemn all such conduct, and I call on all political parties, especially the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress, to ensure that this is the last time such undignified acts occurring during our periods of transition.
President Akufo-Addo there at the State of the Nation address earlier this morning. Well, he says he hopes that this will be the last time that we have to go through this. Evans, do you envisage that this will be the last time that we hear the president say this should be the last time?
For the sake of our democracy, for the sake of Ghana, of course, I hope so. But whether I sincerely believe it's the last time, I doubt very much. This current government will have 4 years. If they do well and achieve all their goals, possibly, they'll have a second term. After 8 years, this only happens when we change from one government to the other. One party hands over to the next party, and then we see these things. It's always happened since 2000 when we first did the changeover in government. And you think, in fact, if for anything at all, we've seen it this year, again, rear its head in a very ugly fashion. The president is optimistic. The question is whether he's done enough to ensure that it doesn't happen again. The key question to ask him, or to ask anybody who is close to the presidency, is he's saying, well, it's my hope that this doesn't happen again, but you need to take concrete steps that will actually make it possible for us not to have it again. Has he done that yet? I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Because we still have a long way to go. What are the concrete steps that he's taking to ensure that, and again, this comes within the setting, I guess, poison political atmosphere. So one government loses power and they exit. The next government comes and that poison political atmosphere then degenerates.
Okay, now just not to cut you there, but this is what he said. He said it appears that these events were predicated on some concept of equalization. And if you follow all that the party executives have said after this issue, they all seem to say that, well, it happened, and so it's happening again. Do you get the feeling that the way they kind of highlights the equalization bit, that it's actually a way to justify it?
Yeah, I mean, we had MPP executives justifying what had happened. We had the national chairman of the party, acting national chairman of the party, justifying this and saying that, yeah, I mean, people had a legitimate reason to do what they did. Now, we talk about equalization, then the president talks about it rightly. Yeah. That is true. But what has happened is they we had a case of Agbogboshi, for example. The MPP supporters had gone over, taken over toilets and people's shops, etc., etc., and they've asked the people to leave and go back to their hometowns. The equalization will come in 2000 and whatever when the NDC comes to power, whatever it is. I don't know. Nobody knows how long it will take. But when they come to power, they will say, well, these people in 2017 January, when the president took over, he was sworn in. They came to the toilet and they sacked us and they took over the place.
And we went quietly. Now we're back. Quietly.
Now we're back. We're going to take over. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And I really hope that and wish that the president will take concrete steps to make sure this doesn't happen again. Now, if you read his body language, I believe sincerely that silently he's doing something about it. The way you start doing something about it is trying to be conciliatory. In other words, look at the way he starts by, commending former John Dramani Mahama. Look at the way they handle his residency matter. Eventually, the president himself had to come out and say, "I don't want it anymore," because obviously from what we had, they had made a gentleman's agreement that have it. In other words, and again, today I spoke to Asedun Ketia, who said the president was conciliatory. He used the word conciliatory. I was surprised. But for him to say that, it tells you that they're getting signals from this current president that he wants to reach beyond the NPP and reach to the other side. That sends signals to the rank and file, the foot soldiers. Those are the guys who do these things. To sit back and say, if my president is sounding conciliatory, he didn't go into the vehicles matter. Nobody has been, officially been hanged yet. I mean, hanged figuratively, because we've seen that in the past. People were chased into he himself became a victim of that when his cars were seized from him, etc., etc. That has happened to some extent, but largely he's trying to reach across the political divide. And I guess that is a way to start healing the wounds, but he has to go beyond that. I actually call people to sit down one table.
And this is Asedun Ketia. Now that you mentioned Asedun Ketia, let me bring in Asedun Ketia. Earlier, he spoke to both Evans and I think Evans, you spoke to him, right? Yes, he spoke to Evans in Parliament. We can hear him on that now.
I don't believe in what he's saying, the sincerity of what he's saying, honestly, because he was still in town when these things were happening, and we were calling him that you should strike when the iron is hot. Now everything has died down, so what is the purpose of condemning it? It has happened already. Those who have to suffer have suffered. You are now saying that there should be a truce on your terms, so that next time when somebody takes over, it shouldn't happen. Is that what he wants us to believe?
Apparently his call to the IGP might have led to the issue dying down.
But this statement, if he had made it publicly at that time, I'm sure that there are things that we could have avoided.
Your reaction to the State of the Nation address generally?
Well, parts of the statement appear conciliatory, which is good. But the other parts about the state of the economy and so on is no news to anybody. Because I thought they painted even a gloomier picture when they were in opposition about the state of the economy. So I hope they are not going to use these statistics to run away from their
problem. He says they are facts. He says the minority appears to have a problem with facts.
No, you see, it's been said that there are three types of lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. If you want to tell a particular story about statistics, you pick the figures that you are interested in, and they will tell that story. If another person picks another set of figures to tell a better story of the economy, that person will also succeed. And I'm saying that I'm not interested in whatever description he will put to the state of the economy. I'm happy he has said that he was elected to fix it. Let him fix it. He should not use any state of the economy argument to run away from the promises. We are expecting to see the 1 million, one constituency. Indeed, we are waiting for the $1 million in
one
time.
District, yes.
In time, one district.
That happens to be your district.
Yeah.
So that is Asedun Ketia there talking about the president fixing it. Well, he goes in a bit into the economy, but I'm not engaging Evans on the economy right now. Very soon, George Rafi will join me so we can talk about the economy. Evans, he spoke about a lot of things. He goes into energy, he goes into education. In fact, he goes into unemployment and all the things that they want to do to reduce unemployment. But I believe that will be appropriate in the economic discussion. Let's look at energy. He says that about 43 agreements were signed by the NDC and all of that. And the energy levy, for instance, the finance minister has said will be maintained for some time. But do you get a sense that they seem to be falling back on their promise to remove some of these levies, remove some of these taxes? And so this is like preparing the grounds for us to make it easier for people, or for the Ghanaian people, to accept if they say that, well, we can't take off these taxes, we can't take off these levies.
I mean, I actually heard him say today, and we need to look at the full text, but listen to him in Parliament. Okay. He actually said that they're going to remove, they're going to reduce part of the energy sector levies. I thought I heard him say that when he was talking about improving transparency in tariff setting and introduce new tariff mechanisms to protect the vulnerable people. Then he also goes on to talk about his commitment to reduce or remove some of the taxes and levies on the energy. So I heard him say that today. The debate about the questions relating to the energy sector levies, of course, is going to be a challenge, because I, for example, was asking the former energy minister, Amakofi Boab, a question about the $2.4 billion debt that the president talks about today. If indeed we have a $2.4 billion debt, in fact, he says we inherited a highly indebted energy sector. So that is the situation as we have it. Is it possible to have this debt sitting on the books and still reduce the energy sector levies that are supposed to give you some money to pay it off? It's a question that we still need to answer.
So that's the quote you were asking for, Evans. It says, energy sector has caused havoc and brought many
organizations to
their knees. The attempt to solve the problem has left a gargantuan debt. We inherited a heavy indebted energy sector. We are looking at $2.4 billion debt net, with $800 billion owed to local banks, which he said was crippling these banks.
Yeah, so the big irony for me, the big question still left unanswered, and maybe we can get a finance minister when it comes to with the budget to try and explain and solve that puzzle for me, is if you have $2.4 billion debt, how do you sort of pay that debt, write that debt off, and pay that debt and still cut the taxes? Because they promised to do that, and today he's touched on that. So that for me is a big dilemma. Then also he says, again, if you are a citizen, this will fill it with a bit of hope. He says we will ensure value for money electricity procurement. We will introduce an electricity master plan, which is good. In fact, if you notice, over the last few days, a certain measure of doomsday is creeping back in.
Exactly.
In fact, just afternoon, I just was in town. I noticed that people had their generators on.
Yeah.
I called home. I didn't have electricity. Also, over the weekend, I had blackouts. Clearly, we have a problem. We have a problem, and the president diagnosed that. And people need to notice the difference between the present diagnosis and what the previous government diagnosis was. The current government diagnosis, this is what they've maintained, is this is purely a financial problem. The past government said this is a mechanical, technical problem.
They say it's a generational.
I mean, they're two poles apart. Except, having nailed it on a financial problem, with the current challenge we know exists, it's going to be we have a tough time ahead in the energy sector, because he says, and it was hinting at something that his senior minister had indicated, the possibility of trying to review the Millennium Challenge Compact on energy. He says that the U.S. compact has come into force. There are some disagreements, of course, which he's pointing out. The ECG staff are against it, but we need further dialogue. And he's calling for dialogue not only between government and the workers who are agitating, but government and the compact managers themselves. Yeah. The U.S. government. U.S. government had come out clearly to say, listen, it's too late. You cannot renegotiate it. It's done. Let's move on. Clearly, he's indicating that they might want to look at that. That is going to be a bit of a challenge. We want to see how they do that.
This is a matter of bilateral agreements, isn't it?
Yeah, but
if you agree between the two countries agree that this is not working very well for our country, they should be able to review that.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you listen to the U.S. ambassador to Ghana's point of view on this, for them, this is fait accompli. We've signed it. It's sealed. There's nothing else we can do about it. We simply have to move on. The government needs to simply implement what we have. In fact, his point is that the government of the USA is looking at working with the current government to implement the compact. And so we wait to see. Now, something he says that I was personally glad of. He says we will also work to list the ECG on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
That is progressive because the staff of the ECG, one of the key, they were not just objecting to the constitutional approach, which the compact is introducing. They were saying that, listen, we have better alternatives. If you really want to revive ECG, recapitalize it, it's not to give it to a private sector person. List it on the stock exchange so everybody else can own a share. When you do that, you're recapitalizing it, but Ghanaians own it essentially.
But the concern that the opposition, the NDC are raising is that, we hope that you're not going to bring in some foreign partners to come and take over. At the end of the day, they are going to be the major shareholders because they can afford it.
Well, that's a risk in floating on the stock exchange. If you float on the stock exchange, it means that anybody who has money, you can go and buy it. If you have enough money, you can buy as enough shares as possible.
But at the end of the day, Evans, if you bring somebody in who has got much more money.
So the point about floating on the stock exchange, though, it's not, you leave it for the market forces to decide who owns the shares.
But that,
so it's
how
not the
fair
government.
is it for the Ghanaian? If you want the Ghanaian people to own it and you put it out there, and you know that someone else has a capital advantage over the Ghanaian people, then they're going to take it. It doesn't make sense. It has to be regulated properly.
Well, the stock exchange has its own regulations. But I think the fundamental point is, and remember that this particular proposal is supported by the workers. Right. The workers say, they put this proposal out there and say, we think you should float it, so that everybody else in Ghana can own a share. Okay. If a foreigner comes in and believes that ECG is worth it, the person can also put in a share. What this is going to do is to ease the tensions we've seen on the energy sector, the front, the workers agitating. Okay. That for me is progressive. We also need to see how they try and renegotiate the compact if they indeed want to go down that route. So really, I mean, and it talks about the 48-power agreement that are being signed, that again, you're going to review, renegotiate, and cancel 43. Yeah. Cancel if they have to. If they have to. Again, I was speaking to the former energy minister, whose point essentially was that it shouldn't be made to appear that the 43-power agreement was signed under the last administration. That in fact, the 43, he says, I'm just quoting him, agreements, the total number of private PPP agreements signed since Adam, essentially. All the the governments passed to date have all combined have signed 43 power agreements and power purchase agreement, whatever it is, PPP agreements, and that it shouldn't be seen as if this the previous administration signed all the 43 agreements. But so be that as it may, if we have 43 power purchase agreement, none of them really are taken, apart from a few. We know that the Asogli plant is one of those. They're working perfectly. But if you have this on your books, I agree you need to try and see which ones are just sitting there for the sake of it, which ones can you realistically expect to work with, and which ones we should simply forget and move on. And I think he's indicated that. But at the end of the day, will this solve my power crisis? We need to wait to see what the finance minister will say in terms of how we are going to deal with the $2.4 billion. Because if you deal with that, you leave fiscal space for VRA, ECG, Gridco to have money, buy the crude we need to power our plants. The budget will give us a lot more details. They say we're wrapping up with Evans, but Evans, before I let you go, one issue we should touch on: corruption. He wasn't very big on corruption, was he? Well, I think he was consistent. Maybe he didn't spend, in comparison to the others, he didn't spend too much time, I guess we want to say, on talking about corruption, but he was consistent. He talked about independent public prosecutor, something he's always talked about, which in fact for me it appears, it seems to be the flagship approach or the flagship vehicle for Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo for dealing with corruption. And his reason, independent prosecutor? Yes. His reason is, I want to depoliticize this whole process. So when I'm coming after you, whether you are my own person or your position. I get colorblind. Yeah, I mean, you can't blame me. I mean, this guy is doing his work. You can't come to me and... Really, Evans? No, well, that is... I mean, you followed a lot of political discussion. You followed lots of political stories as well. Is that how it works in Ghana? Well, I mean, see, we've never had an independent public prosecutor. Right. So that's a gray area. That's an area we haven't... It's an uncharted territory. Okay. So, but the way it's been pitched, and today he repeated it, it appears, of course, it's in the name, independent. How independent will the person be? We wait to see. But if this person is really independent, he believes that is the way to deal with corruption. Then you can go after anybody and nobody will cry foul. Nobody will come and say, I'm being witch hunted. Nobody will walk to the president's house and say, I beg you, talk. Because the guy is independent.
Depends on the legislation that backs
Exactly.
this, right?
So that's what he repeated. So he was consistent. Okay. He didn't spend too much time, admittedly, on talking about it. I guess because he felt, let me just repeat my point about a prosecutor. And let's implement that. Because he says he's going to bring the legislation to Parliament. Yeah. Which, again, will spell out the details. But what the president did today in all the big things, and that's why it was short. Remember, if you compare it to the others, definitely. Apart from the
well, usually first owners are short.
The last one that the president gave was also very short. The former president gave
John Mahama
was also very short, but understandably so because he was leaving. This one, he thought was going to be more detailed, more lengthy.
Well, they said that it was going to be short.
But he was quite emphatic in almost all the key areas, saying, "Wait for the budget." And I was saying today in Parliament that I finished listening to him feeling very heavy for the finance minister.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I didn't envy him at all. Well, the expectations the president had put on his shoulders tonight is awesome. Today.
You're in the night
it's
already.
Awesome. You know, I'm a night person. I host programs in the evening, so I've been using night all the time.
Well, it's very interesting, and very interesting that you add your own feelings to it, that you feel that the finance minister must be heavily burdened.
I don't envy him
with all
at
of the
all. We are going to waiting for that budget with. I'm gonna get warm water and put my feet in it and wait wait for 2nd March.
We wait for 2nd March. By the way, 3 days after that is my birthday, Evans. Just so you know. We've been talking about the president's speech. We've been talking about the president's speech. Myself and Evans Mensah, head of our political desk here at Joy News, we've been engaging what the president said on corruption, on the energy sector especially, and all the burdens that he's placing on his finance minister. Evans Mensah, thank you very much, Evans, for passing through. You're welcome back. You're still watching The Pulse. We're engaging President President Akufo-Addo, I beg your pardon. President Akufo-Addo's speech today, his first State of the Nation address. Now it's time for us to talk about agriculture and what he said. He mentions a national program that is going to be rolled out, and that program is supposed to make agriculture attractive. We can go and hear him say that. Now, when I return, I'll be engaging Charles Nyaba. Charles Nyaba is Programs Director with the Ghana Peasant Farmers Association. He is already in the studio, but let's hear the president first.
Unfortunately, the state of agriculture in our country right now is not good. Farmers are left on their own. It is not surprising, therefore, that food prices are high, and we're having to import almost everything we eat, including vegetables from our Sahelian neighbors. And yet, agriculture provides the best opportunity to use modern methods to change the lives of many within the shortest possible time. We have to irrigate our lands and equip farmers with the skills needed to make farming a well-paying business. We aim to popularize farming by encouraging many people to take it up as a full or part-time activity. A national campaign, Planting for Food and Jobs, will be launched to stimulate this activity. An amount of 125 million Canadian dollars has been secured from Canada, a friend of our nation, to support the initiative. This campaign will be anchored on the pillars that will transform agriculture: the provision of improved seeds, the supply of fertilizers, the provision of dedicated extension services, a marketing strategy, and the use of e-agriculture. To initiate the campaign, the district assemblies will be tasked to identify and register progressive farmers in each of the 216 districts. Mr. Speaker, for too long, our farmers have been left to cope by themselves without the necessary support from government. For too long, our farmers have been left to the mercy of the vagaries of the weather. We have decided to embark on a program to provide water to enable all-year farming. We're calling it the One Village, One Dam policy. It is a program that I expect will rapidly get the support of the population and should help to transform food insecurity in our country. The 3 northern regions in particular will benefit from the availability of water to enable all-year farming so that the enforced yearly migration can be minimized and food production become more predictable. I look forward to an increase in public investment in agriculture starting from the first budget of my government. We must reverse the unfortunate trend of the past 8 years, which saw a regular decrease in public investment in the sector that provides a living for the majority of our people. Mr. Speaker, food processing has been the first steps towards industrialization in virtually every country, and it is time for us to take it seriously. Not only will it serve to cut down on the wastage of crops during the high season, it will provide more jobs and expand farming business. Food processing will also save time in the preparation and cooking of our local foods, and there will be better control on the hygiene in the process. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to an exciting time in the agricultural sector.
State of the Nation address President Akufo-Addo there on agriculture and what he intends to do. He talks about the One Village, One Dam project and, of course, the national campaign that is supposed to make agriculture attractive, improve seed, etc. Like I said, Charles Nyaba is in the studio with me. He is Programs Director at the Ghana Peasant Farmers Association. You're welcome, sir. Many thanks for your time. Okay. You've heard the President speak about all the things that he intends to do in the agricultural sector. As peasant farmers, does it address the fundamental issues that you have, would you say?
Okay, thank you. And let me say good evening to all peasant farmers who are watching the program. To us, I think it's a good news. But whether that addresses all our problems is a different issue.
Okay.
Because we've heard this
before.
Okay. And on many platforms. So if only they are to do what they said they will do, I think that about 60% of the problems will be solved.
So yeah. One Village, One Dam, the national campaign that is supposed to make people go into full-time or part-time farming. What would you describe yours? Is it full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time?
Yeah.
So why is it the Peasant Farmers Association? Do you get to sell your product on a large scale, or?
Thank you. You know, I have a serious problem with the way we implement projects in Ghana. And I think that if we should toe the same line, we'll end up in the same results. I always want to use 2 countries that have been able to change from import of rice to become export nation. If you take Turkey and India, what did they do? They've not concentrated in only giving inputs and production, but they focus on the marketing first.
Okay.
You need to produce to meet the demand of market and consumers. Now we are talking about reducing importation of rice. Today, when you go to Asachwari, you go to Ashama, you go to the Tono, all the rice producing areas, there's a pack of paddy rice lying there. The processors are not interested. Consumers are not interested because
why?
This rice doesn't meet the quality that they are looking for.
Okay.
You produce a rice with a certain moisture content for processors to take it and reduce the broken and then be able to process it in a way that consumers will like it. We are not doing all of that. So if you continue to concentrate on production, putting it there without looking at improving the quality, you are going to be in serious trouble.
Okay, so
last
you would
year,
rather...
Let me give you one example.
Okay.
Last year, Guinness Brewery Ghana were demanding for sorghum. One farmer was able to mobilize smallholder farmers to produce 7,000 tons of sorghum. They sent the sorghum to the warehouse of Guinness Ghana in Kumasi, and all the sorghum was rejected.
Why?
Because the sorghum didn't meet the quality that they were looking for.
Did they not give them the quality, the level of quality they expected so that your farmers could have worked
That's the point we are talking. Even if you give them the level of quality you are looking for, you need to build their capacity. They need logistics. Sorghum in the first place, when it's ready for harvesting, not only sorghum, maize, rice, and you don't harvest it using the rice machinery, and then you dry it at the right temperature, it will be full of problems.
So what happened to the farmers who put in so much of their investments to bring, to send that number of...
all is gone wasted. So the following year, those farmers said they were not going to sorghum production again. And these problems are still there.
They could not sell it to anybody else?
They could not sell it to anybody else. Now, the program of planting for food and jobs is good. I listened to the Minister of Agric. We had conversation with him.
Okay.
I think his ideas are fantastic. But I was only surprised that he said the initial money that they got from the Canadian government is going to be used for extension and improved seeds alone, without giving us details where this money is going and how it's going to be used. So we have doubt about that approach, because we would like to know, if you say improve seeds, are you going to buy the seeds for the farmers free? Are you going to build their capacity to be able to produce these seeds? Are you going to subsidize the seeds? If you say
or are you going to give the CSIR, for instance, some money to go into research?
To go into research, into all that. That is not clearly stated. Okay. Now you talk of extension. Are you going to open or to lift the embargo on recruitment, or the limited number that is there, you are going to build their capacity, giving them logistics to be able to do that? That is not clearly detailed. So we are thinking that if you want to move away from the traditional way of doing things, which we did in the past and we've not been able to succeed, we need to actually introduce new techniques and engage new stakeholders who will come in with new knowledge and approaches for us to be able to get there. Okay. One good program that I will encourage them to do is the One Village, One Dam project. So I was even expecting that the first money of $120,000 should have actually gone into this, because in the first place, for farmers to be able to produce, they need water. And the issue of climate change is here with us. You go to the northern Ghana, and rains that we used to have 4 months, 5 months, now they get 3 months or even less. And it's so erratic that they produce, when it's about getting time to harvest, this rains doesn't come. And they lost all that they put on the ground. So that's the way we are looking at it. That's
why you're looking at it. So if government, apart from the things that you've lined out here, what do you think should be the first step that they take? Because the president doesn't provide lots of information, and of course you're asking for a lot of information concerning, especially concerning the improved seeds that they talk about. But what for you should be the first step that
let me take you back. Let me take you back to what India and Turkey did. What they did was to identify a few seeds and then invest more in those seeds. Okay. Now, they did that by also coming in with mechanization services, engaging these farmers to ensure that even if you have half an acre, you get the necessary mechanization services that you're looking for. The previous season, most rice farmers produced, they couldn't get combined harvesters to harvest. All the rice remained there. So the first thing for them to do, I would have gone for the dams, creation of the dams, but that is too short. So they should create the dams immediately. That's what you call it. But that is going to be too short for 2017 farming season. So what we need to do is that to put more into subsidizing the inputs, fertilizer and seed, because when the subsidy program started in 2008, it started with 45% subsidy and the farmers were paying 55%, which was quite better. In 2016, we were paying 81% and government was subsidizing only 19%. Which for you was very high, because you buy a bag of compound fertilizer, 15 for 85 Ghana cedis. You take a bag of maize and you are selling it for 50 Ghana cedis. So you need about 2 bags of maize, almost 2 bags of maize to buy 1 bag of fertilizer. Wow. And other inputs, the price is very high. So we are thinking that a very short term, where we need to put this money is to increase the subsidy component of the fertilizer and the seed. At least if they make it 50% or more, and then the seed, they subsidize it, including the organic fertilizer. Now, coming to the subsequent years, they can start to map up the areas where they are going to do to create the dams. Okay. And with that, we're making a progress. Okay. Very interesting comments that you make. You want government to look into mechanization and subsidizing inputs and seeds as well. That for you will be a good start. Yeah.
even though you agree that the one dam, one village thing will work, that will take some time. And so in the immediate term, they should look at mechanization and subsidizing your inputs. Okay, I'll come back to you, Charles, now, but let's take the responses that the opposition, now opposition NDC, who have just left power, had to say to the president's proposals in the agricultural sector.
It won't be too long, the reality will set in. If there's anything at all that our friends who are coming into power would understand is that when you are looking at creation of jobs globally, agriculture is not the way to look. If you're looking at creation of jobs, you're talking much more about manufacturing, about industry. Agriculture, by its very nature, as it becomes more efficient, you tend to shed a lot of manpower and move much more into capitalization. You move much more into capital-intensive agriculture all over the world. Go to South Africa, go to India, go to America, everywhere you go. So you're looking at real transformation in terms of job. Agri exactly is not the way to go. But I can understand agriculture in terms of value addition. That actually will bring many more people on a lot of our young people are not interested in the kind of very labor-intensive agriculture. No, they are interested, for example, in agriculture where you don't really employ too many people. For example, you have what you call greenhouses. That really doesn't employ a lot of people, but much more effective. They want to use what you call capital modern type of agriculture. So I would wish for them to de-emphasize a little more on the job issue and be looking much more about what you call higher value addition that would actually bring about greater efficiency in agriculture instead of making it look as if it's just a place for increased job, because really all over the world best practice shows that agriculture is not the sustainable way to increase.
Ghana has one of the lowest productivity in agriculture, even by West African standard. Okay. The agricultural performance in terms of annual percentage growth has been declining from 7.4% when the NDC took over in 2009 to 2.4%, which is the year 2015, the year that we have full information. So if the agricultural productivity is low and the rate of growth is declining, it does not necessarily mean that it's shedding labor because of efficiency. You shed labor with efficiency, but in this case, labor is being shared without the efficiency. So the idea is to increase productivity on the farm and outside the farm. As you do that, you absorb more labor. The Planting for Food and Jobs is a pilot scheme involving 200,000 farmers this coming 2 months when the program starts. It's going to cost 560 million Ghana cedis.
You already have 125 million.
Yeah,
from the Canadian government.
No. The Canadian facility is for 5 years.
Okay.
I'm talking about just this year.
Okay, I see.
It's going to cost about 125 million US dollars. 560 million. It's going to generate income for these farmers of 1.3 billion and creating 750,000 jobs. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because it's agriculture and is not growing that you share jobs. It creates jobs. There's an opportunity to create on-farm jobs. And in addition to this 1.3 billion, you are talking about other benefits. As I'm saying, 750. Next year, we are stepping it up to involve not 200,000 farmers to maybe 700,000 farmers. And it's going to create even more jobs and create more incomes. So that is the way we are going. And that is only the spearhead of the program to revive agriculture, to reduce the huge import bill for food, which has reached 2.2 billion in 2015 from only $350 million about 10 years ago. So there are a whole lot of things wrong with our agriculture that we are determined to reverse by this steady approach to increasing productivity, absorbing labor. I mean, I'm a farmer. I have people coming to my farm to prune our coffee trees and our cocoa trees who are actually undergraduates at university. In my time, it would never have happened, but it's happening. So the opportunity to create jobs, on-farm jobs, is real. It's not any theoretical thing.
Okay.
And we are relying on that to absorb the huge mountain of unemployed young people that we find in this country.
So those are the opposing views, if you like. Not very opposing, I must say, because they seem to be saying basically the same thing. Fifi Kwete, who is former Agric Minister, basically talks about mechanization, which is what you said. But what he is not sure of is whether or not that will create jobs. This, Dr. Free, on the other hand, thinks that it will necessarily create jobs. I'll take what you think about what they're saying. But on the line with me, by the way, is Dr. Henry Enim Somwa, who is an Agric economist. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse. I've lost him. Well, let's take your views on the two
I think
thoughts.
I have a problem with the Fifi Kwete's analysis.
Okay.
You know, if you look at the history of agriculture development, even in the developing countries, how agriculture developed, we have the takeoff stage, where you set the foundation, you have the farmers empowered, you have all your systems in place. More farmers produce more. So as they produce more, you create industries. You establish industry, manufacturing industry. So these people now produce and supply the industry. With time, you introduce mechanization, and the people who were actually producing now move and be working in the industries. But if you take our situation, I mean Ghana, the foundation is still weak.
Okay.
Farmers are not still able to produce enough to feed the industry. These industries are non-existent. So what we need to do is to create a good foundation, build the capacity of the farmers, create the agro-industry. Then in future, when they're able to produce more, now labor will move from production stage to supply services to the industries.
I see.
So
Hold on for me.
Yeah.
Hold on for me, Mr. Naba. Dr. Henry is back on the line. Dr. Henry Enim Somwa is an Agric economist. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse.
Thank you.
The line is not very good, but let's see how it goes. Did you follow the President's State of the Nation address today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let's speak about the agriculture. They talk about rolling out a national campaign that should necessarily make agriculture attractive. I've got in the studio here with me someone from the Peasant Farmers Association who is saying that, well, the one village, one dam thing is a good thing to do, but in the immediate term measure, what we need to do is to look at mechanization and subsidizing inputs and seeds. From where you sit as an Agric economist, is that the way to go? Does it make sense to you?
Well, I think that what he said is necessary to get agriculture in a different phase. But thinking about the key
the line is terrible. Dr. Henry, I'm afraid the line is not very good. Can you reposition yourself and let's try that and see how it works?
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead. Let's see if it
works. Is
works.
it better now?
It appears so.
All right. The key is for us to change the fundamentals because the fundamentals for agricultural production in this country is a little outdated. It is too traditional to meet the demands of our food markets today.
Okay.
And so it becomes an imperative that if a government goes on a national campaign that addresses just an element, which is the input supply, then the key things that needs to be done would be missing. And I share with the Peasant Farmers Association on the fact that we need to be looking at how we can change our production practices.
Okay.
So that the improved seeds and fertilizers that we get would give us the needed productivity and make us competitive in our own domestic market.
There has been a concern about GMO food and introducing GMO foods into the country. When they say improved seeds, are you certain in your mind exactly what it means?
Yes, I am certain. I am certain in when we talk about improved seeds. Improved seed can come from even open pollinated seeds that have been properly cleaned, properly stored. The traits or the varieties that we're talking about are pure. So that when a farmer grows, for example, a Janguma open pollinated soybean seed, they show what he's growing. That can be improved seed. The second thing we could look at is that we could also be looking at hybrid seeds that are not genetically modified, but seeds that can have higher viability and higher productivity in terms of returns on our investment, on the sweat of the farmer, returns to land, and returns to the other capital things, so the fertilizer and seeds that we have put in place.
Okay.
So improved seeds, it's far and distant from genetic modified organisms or as such.
Doc, you speak also about the fundamentals that we've got. There's a problem with the fundamentals of our agriculture, and if we need to deal with it, that's what we need to look at. But there have also been concerns about the gap that lies between, say, scientists or people who are doing research into the seeds, etc., and people like Charles here, who are peasant farmers, that there is a certain gap between these two groups. How do we bring the two of you together and make sure that even the language, for instance, that you use, that it's something that they're comfortable with, something that they understand, that helps them in their production?
Okay. I think that at this stage, there's a need for us to bring the knowledge that has been acquired or the knowledge that is developed in our research institutions into a mode that they can. My suggestion for that is systems that have been used elsewhere, as the president mentioned today in the State of the Nation address, that ICT would be a pillar in this country. And I think that cuts across the barrier of language, of communication. For example, if I develop a good nursery practices for vegetable seeds, and I can pull it up into small videos that I can send over to farmers in the community with language that is done over the video in their own languages, then my research can reach the farmers in large numbers.
Doc, just hold for me.
At a very low cost.
Let me bring Charles in, and let me allow Charles to speak to you as well and find out what he makes of this suggestion. He's saying that, one of the ways to bridge the gap between people like himself and people who research into agriculture and yourself, peasant farmers, so we can feel the impacts there, is about, putting some of these things on video. Is that, for you, does that work, or do you think there's more that they can do?
Yeah, I think I agree perfectly with him, but that alone cannot still address the problem, because somebody need to take this video to those communities. Those communities need to have facilities that you can use to access these videos. When Ministry of Food and Agriculture started to introduce their e-extension program, we keep telling them that this is good, but we are thinking that you are moving too faster than you can get there. So they needed
too fast for you, the peasant farmers.
Yeah, because what they did was that they were expecting farmers to receive extension information on their phones.
Okay.
Most communities where these farmers were located, there was no telecommunication networks. Most of the farmers they were targeting could not even read text messages. So it was actually a problematic. You ask them and they said they are getting the results that they're looking for.
Do you have any suggestions for Dr. Henry?
Yeah, I think what Doc is doing...
You can speak to him directly.
Yeah.
He can hear you.
Doc, good evening. Hello, Doc. I think he's off.
Perhaps he can't hear you.
So to me, I think for us to get there, we need to develop these technologies with the farmers.
Okay, I think you can talk to Doc now directly.
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Charles.
Yeah, I do agree with some of the recommendations you are giving. But before we get there, there are certain fundamentals that we need to address. Whether there are facilities in those communities that the farmers will use to access these videos that we are talking about. For instance, if you are developing an ICT tool that you'll be able to send extensive information to a community in Gungwalgo in the northern region. Now, you alone cannot do that. You still need the extension officers to help you to carry this information there. Here's the case, we have one extension officer to 3,000 farmers. So we still think that it's an area that we need to step up these numbers so that they'll be able to carry out this information to them. Beyond that, we also expect to have participatory ICT development, of which we are looking up to work with Doc. And then we are thinking that if the Agri Minister is listening, we have the solution. We are the farmers, we are those who produce. Doc I know him very well.
Yeah.
Doc have a lot of information.
Let me take his reaction to what you just said, and we'll try and wrap up on this. Hello, Doc.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, what do you say to what he has just told you?
Yeah, you see, the problem we have is that we try to box ICT. But in actual sense, we can explore ICT even in those communities that is mentioned. There's no internet connectivity, nothing of that sort. Once I can get that video into a small package, there's many ways that I can get that to the farmer.
Okay.
For example, the concept of the talking box. The talking box or talking book is a little ICT tool that allows farmers to communicate by voice.
Okay, and if that has been successful, have you communicated? Do you have plans? And let's wrap up on this, Doc. Do you have plans to reach out to governments with some of these ideas, since they seem to have they're looking at rolling out a national program that addresses agriculture? Are you going to reach out to government perhaps with this, with maybe the Ministry of Agriculture, so we can get this up and running?
Oh, I think that we'll reach out because it's for Ghana and it's for police. And therefore, with the government's bold, I personally think that the government initiative is bold, and as the call is for everyone to contribute, I'm ready and willing to contribute my quota into making agriculture something more attractive and a job-creating vehicle for our young people.
Right, Doc. We'll come after you to see how far you've gone with your engagement with the Agric Ministry, so we can get this up and running. Thank you very much, Dr. Henry Enim-Somwa is an Agric economist there with that perspective. Let me wrap up with you here in the studio.
I think I agree with the proposals from Jock. We have already been to the minister with some proposals.
Okay.
We went to help improving sorghum value chain. So from here, I'll get in touch with Doc to see whether he'll be able to make input into that proposal.
Okay.
And then we'll be engaging the minister. A word of caution to the minister is that he shouldn't take the traditional way that our predecessors did and fail. He should try and consult widely to people like Doc, to our organization, and other experts who are outside the public sector for their views.
Thank you very much for your time. Charles Nyaba is the Programs Director with the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, helping us to analyze President Kufuor's the bits of his speech that speaks to agriculture. George Rafe is joining me in the studio in just a bit, but just before we do that, here's what the President said on the economy.
I say nothing new or dramatic when I tell this House that the economy of our country is in a bad way. In the run-up to the recent elections, I said so often and loudly. Some 6 weeks after taking over the reins of government, it gives me no pleasure to have to say that our worst fears have been confirmed, plus a few additional unpleasant surprises as well. Mr. Speaker, many get quite lost when economists start rattling figures and statistics. I will not try to bore you with a lot of figures, but I hope you will bear with me as I have to put certain essential facts before our country. You would recall that notwithstanding the fact that the previous government had more than 10 times the financial resources than any other government since independence, its management of our economy in the run-up to the 2012 presidential and parliamentary elections resulted in a quagmire that necessitated the urgent intervention of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in 2014.
You obviously have heard many of what he's saying about the economy over and over again. George, you are facing the studio. George, this is, I mean, like he said, he's not going to say anything dramatically different. This is something that we've heard over and over again. What we do know is that we didn't meet some of the targets under the IMF program. They knew this, didn't they? Will it affect their programs in any way, by the way?
Yes, you knew it, but you get the indication from the president is that each and every day
we are getting new numbers that paints a picture the situation will be bad than we thought. I mean, we knew that government will miss the targets, but what will be the fine target at the end of the day? We are talking about the amount of money you spent as against your revenue that you mobilized. And it looks like it will be far higher than what government initially thought. That has implications on the economy as well, because you're going to prepare your budget in less than 2 weeks from now, and you still don't know the state of the country's finances, because you want to set macroeconomic targets, and that will be based on what happened last year. It means that if you don't get the past right, the premise of this budget itself will be wrong, because what will be the basis of setting those critical macroeconomic targets when it comes to inflation, when it comes to deficit, when it comes to all those critical factors that you want to look at. So for me, it just re-emphasizes the point that things are very bad than we thought. And for me, how is government going to plan if you still cannot assess the true state of the economy, and the state of the country's finances?
At least they got something to work with. By the way, they say they will fix it, so they have to fix it. He says that by the end of 2016, the debt stock had ballooned to 122 billion, and the estimated the interest cost on the debt is about 14.1 billion. When we put all of these figures together, many people like myself, layman, just hears big figures. How do we envisage that these will affect the common people like
now,
myself?
You're talking about a public debt which is provisional and not final at 122. We are hearing that it could end at 124. Now, if these funds were not put into areas that could pay for itself, it means that government has to find ways and means to settle these debts. Our interest on loans that we borrow is becoming the third highest or the second highest bill on government expenditure. So if you don't put these monies in areas that can pay for it, so it means that some critical projects that you're supposed to finance this year, you might have to cut funding and use it to pay off these debts. It means that some projects are also going to suffer.
But the projects that the Mahama administration, they did lots of projects and they said those were self-financing. Wouldn't they help us?
Well, that is what we are all hoping, because if it's true that some 7 billion Ghana cedis that have been spent by the previous administration wasn't channeled through the gift mix system as well, then where did these monies go? Were they into capital projects or prudent projects that can pay for it? So I'm talking about the impact. So you come back to our city right now. If you're spending a chunk of our money clearing dollar debts, it means that there'll be also pressure on the Ghana city. So those are the things.
Is this something we're looking at, we're seeing, we're experiencing already?
The city is going down. Falling like nobody's business. And we're looking at us at Friday, 4 Ghana cities, 50 pesos. We don't know what will be the closing figure for today. But if these numbers are indeed bigger than we thought, it means that it will have implications on even government's own project that you might want to implement this year. The envelope is not that big, very tight envelope, and there's little room in terms of extra revenue to actually spend this year.
Especially when the government has promised tax cuts. Okay, George Rafe is on our business desk trying to help us understand. Hopefully you did. Economics are always full of big figures. Thank you very much, George, for passing through.
If you want it to be big, actually.
Okay, this is still The Pulse. My name is Gifty Andopia.